Hello. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Joseph Aprile, and I would like to read a number of short stories from my new book entitled The Human Equation, which is a collection of short stories now available on lulu.com. The first story I would like to read is entitled Preston and Cheryl. It was a hot and sultry summer evening in Midtown. Preston and Cheryl had just emerged from a movie theater. The stifling air hit them as soon as they left the air-conditioned lobby. Nonetheless, they were already beginning to debate the movie they had just seen. "I was pretty disappointed," Preston began. "What do you mean?" Cheryl responded. "I believe that he was at his greatest when he made The Virgin Spring. I guess I've gotten sort of spoiled. I now expect the impossible from him. What do you think?" "I don't know. I thought it was brilliant. The Virgin Spring may have been technically perfect, but this film was magnificent." She looked at Preston and realized that as soon as she began to express her own opinion, he immediately seemed to lose interest. He yawned and looked briefly at his watch. "I wonder if the Sunday Times has gotten in yet." Cheryl inhaled deeply and let out an audible sigh. Preston turned towards her. "Is anything the matter?" he asked. "You know very well that the Times has come in. You buy the paper every week at this time, and every week you ask the same question. Come on, Cheryl, what's your problem? Why are you upset with me?" "Nothing. Nothing's the matter. I'm not upset with you. I guess I'm just tired." After picking up the Times, they returned to his apartment. It was a studio apartment on the Upper East Side, outrageously expensive. The owner of the apartment building was generous with security, but absolutely niggardly in regards to space. Cheryl closed her eyes and visualized every movement that Preston would make as they entered the apartment. She saw him place the Times on the kitchen counter. She saw him take off his jacket and hang it up carefully in the closet, and then turn around and open up the convertible bed in the living room. She saw him take off his watch and place it on the small table beside the bed and sit on the edge of the bed. Finally, he would gesture to her to come and sit by him. She saw all this moments before it actually played out in front of her. Her heart felt empty, and her mind abused. She stood there and looked at him with cold and penetrating eyes. "Come here, baby," he said. She wanted to answer him honestly from the center of her emotions, but she gave in as she always did and went over to his side. He put his arm around her and began to fondle her breasts. He then kissed her. She tried to return his kiss, but found herself repulsed by his touch. This feeling was new for her. Usually, she resigned herself to his advances and was able to derive some pleasure from them. Now, however, she was completely disgusted. Her back went rigid and she stood up. "What's the matter?" he demanded. "You just don't have a clue, do you?" "What are you talking about? You've been weird all evening." Suddenly, she saw Preston for the confused little boy he really was. This amused her. She jumped on him, pinning him to the bed. She felt strangely hot and impassioned. It was as if a floodgate had opened up and submerged her ordinary preoccupation with herself. She was usually ruled by an exaggerated sense of propriety and good judgment. "What are you doing?" he yelled. "I'm coming to get you," she answered as she licked her lips and proceeded to undo his pants zipper. Preston pushed Cheryl away and jumped up in an absolute state of panic. "What's the matter with you?" His behavior startled Cheryl back to her rational self. She became absolutely furious. She never realized that she was capable of such anger. "You son of a bitch," she screamed. "You always need to be in control, don't you?" "Well, I'm tired of it. Your prick is so flimsy anyway. It doesn't do a thing for me and never has. You're just a self-serving little man. Forget it, I'm leaving." At that, Cheryl quickly found her coat and was headed for the door. "Wait," Preston said, barely audibly. The lack of conviction evident in his voice was not about to halt Cheryl's progress. As the door slammed behind her, Preston slumped down on the bed. For a moment he was distraught and confused. He was so afraid of these feelings that he did what he always did at such moments. He ignored them. Women, women, he repeated to himself, and turned to the front page of the New York Sunday Times and commenced to read. Two dancers. Jeff and Ruth were married for over 40 years. They experienced together many of the ups and downs of living. They shared both joy and despair in large and small doses. They lost their son Jeremy when he was only a lad of 16. They lost him to the kind of capricious violence that so permeates the modern world. He was shot in the middle of a drug battle outside of school. Jeff and Ruth never escaped the sense of guilt and shame that came from the feeling that somehow they could have prevented that premature conclusion to his life. Yet, they successfully raised two other children, their daughters Norma and Helen. Both daughters were married and had given them a number of grandchildren. They had much to be thankful for, and such joys do have a way of muting the jagged edge of despair. Beyond all these particulars of their lives, they loved each other with an indefatigable passion. It was a love that was caressed by familiarity and years of mutual experience. It was a love that was heightened by unencumbered intimacy. They both loved the very idea of life and treated each other with great kindness and respect. They supported each other and protected one another from the relentless onslaught of gravity. They breathed lightness into each other's souls. All of this became very evident when they danced. When they danced, their bodies took on a gracefulness that was far removed from their chronological age. When they danced, they held each other with both certainty and longing. They felt safe and secure with each other, but not completely comfortable. They maintained that sense of tension that keeps passion thriving. When they danced, they moved along the floor with an easy but not tedious motion. They learned to anticipate each other's movements and inclinations. When they danced, they were suspended within the shimmering vortex of the moment. There, within the grip of the music, they abandoned all conscious thoughts. They lost themselves within the whirlwinds of rhythm. When they danced, all else ceased to be except their own beating hearts, their own love and admiration for each other. In the spirit of the dance, they rediscovered their humanity again and again. When they danced, their bodies surrendered their individualities and merged into a fusion of form commandeered by the power of the present. When they danced, they became like children outside of time's militant procession. When they danced, they surrendered totally to love. Jeff and Ruth were married for over 40 years. They experienced together many of the blinding vicissitudes of living. They shared both elation and sadness in large and small doses. Well, thank you for listening. This book, again, The Human Equation, is now available. It's about 335 pages. It has many stories with many different genres. The connection being a look into the experience of living. I appreciate your presence, and I hope that you are interested enough to buy the book. It is available at lulu.com, and is also available for download for a minuscule $5. Okay? Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye now.